Greetings, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you, MK Mueller, the author of 8 to Great, and it's just a time requiring a pause, isn't it? I had a whole series of podcasts ready for the next few weeks and months, and like most podcasters that I know, we're not talking about anything else right now but what's going on in our country. So if you're like me, you have gone through a series of anguished emotions, everybody in their own way, irregardless of race. All of us have a response to this, which can range from rage to shame, to despair, to confusion, to apathy, right? Which I can't quite imagine, but I'm sure there's some of that out there too. At any rate, so working the process that has been so much a part of my life, the 8 highways process, I felt my feelings. And that's step 4 of our process. And I continue to feel my feelings. Again, true for all of us. Yes, this won't be a nice, tidy thing we can put away in a week or two or a month or two. But then I had to move into honest communication. I had to start talking and listening to others, because just stewing in my own mental soup was not feeling good at all. So tonight I would love, hey sweetheart, good to see you, Elaine. Welcome everybody. John, oh dear heart. So again, welcome to you all. It's wonderful to have you here. And this is going to be a dialogue, so please continue to write in your chats as I go through this. What I'm planning on doing tonight, and why I was adamant that I personally needed to do this, is the first thing I want to do is just talk a little bit about my own experience and encourage you to talk with others about yours and to listen to theirs. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to talk about the power of conversation. If you saw the little tagline that I put on this video, it was to talk about conversations that can change history and that have changed history. And I'm going to share with you 2 very specific examples of how simply a conversation transformed the course of human history. Just absolutely amazing. And finally, I'm going to give you skills that I have now tested with 3 different groups to say how to facilitate that incredibly challenging, incredibly courageous, and incredibly crucial conversation on social justice right now. Okay? So that's my hope. And if you have other, again, questions or comments, please feel free. Hey, Mark. Oh, Allie, good to see you, sweetheart. Oh, I'm so grateful for you all. Again, I look forward to your comments, so I'll check those on a pretty regular basis. So first of all, it's so important to pause and take that sacred moment to honor the lives and the deaths of Ahmaud Arbery, of Breonna Taylor, of George Floyd, and so many others who died, or were incarcerated, or were injured and innocent. I was reading, I don't remember what magazine it was, or what newspaper article it was, or what blog it was. I was reading that many people told George that he was going to change the world. And look what he has done. So, all right, so I'm going to begin with my own personal experience. Hi, Susan. Good to see you, sweetheart. And I'm going to embarrass myself here and say, I thought I understood my black friends. I mean, pretty much. I mean, just, you know, I just thought I thought I was okay as a friend to my black friends and my black neighbors and my black coworkers or whoever. I thought, you know, one young man lived with us, my son and I, for 1.5 years, and of course I knew and loved him and ate with him all the time, and we did so much together, and we had a lot of conversations. But we never had that conversation. You know what I'm talking about, right? We never had the race conversation. And someone was talking with me the other day and they said, you know, I kind of was so shocked at all the stuff I didn't know. Second that emotion. All the stuff I didn't know. That now I'm learning, like at a rapid fire, right, pace. I'm learning so much about what folks have been going through for decades, centuries, right? But definitely decades. And I have to agree. And so their question to me was, should I have asked? And what question should I have asked? And when should I have asked it? And how do I ask it now? And I mean, all valid questions, right? And so somebody said, well, should they have told us? Should we have asked? And there's no shoulds. You know that about 8 to grade. There's no shoulds. It came up now. So we're not going to go back and look in regret about the conversations that could have happened. The conversation is here and is here to be had. And I think this was People Magazine. The editor of People Magazine wrote a beautiful, beautiful tribute to George Floyd. And in the middle was a quote from Dr. King that said, "It is not the violent few who scare me, but the silent many." I'm sorry, it's not the few who are violent, but the many who are silent. There we go. So we're not going to be silent tonight. We're going to talk. Again, I'll read your comments if you have a comment in there. Just because of this technology, that's the best we can do for right now, but it's important not to be silent right now. So I think many of you know me. My highways are what? You get the dream and you take the risk and you take full responsibility. That's been painful, hasn't it? And then you feel all your feelings. Yep, been doing that. Yes, we have cried our tears and we'll continue to. And honest communication is next. And so I had to move myself into action. We talk about in full responsibility and 8 to Great, we talk about moving from BC to AD. And who was I blaming? Me, and all those like me who weren't aware, that silent, the many who were silent. So that can be a sad place to get stuck, can't it? Blaming and shaming ourselves or anybody else. That's not going to get us very far. So what's beautiful is when we move out of BC and blaming and complaining and into AD and acting and dreaming. So for days and days, I said, okay, I need to go to Punta Gorda and I need to march. Okay, happening Friday night, this coming Friday, and I need to do that, and I need to do that. Okay, I did that. Okay, so I'm checking, okay, I need to do this. This is what I can do, and I can do this Facebook Live, and so I'm going to do this. But it was this morning that I got my best gift. It's a very emotional subject for all of us, I know. But for years, I have said that 8 to Great is a great process. but it needs a focus. When I take it into schools, for example, I always said, wouldn't it be cool if they learned the 8th grade and then they built a house for Habitat for Humanity? In other words, they did something with the tools. And so when I woke up this morning, I said, oh, this is it. This is the thing to do with the tools. And that is teach people to have courageous conversations around social justice using the 8 highways, which is what I'm going to teach you at the second half of this call. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do. And I did it today with 20 middle schoolers, very diverse group, and their 4 teachers. And nothing but love, nothing but gratitude. They were so engaged. And I'll tell you some of the stories. It was amazing. So it's already been proven. We know it works. And not having the conversation, well, a 21-year-old recently, I called him to say, how are you doing, dear heart? And he said, you're the first one to ask me that. And I said, tell me more. And he said, none of my coworkers are asking me how I'm doing. Not having the conversation, dear ones, is not an option. Sorry. So I know what stops us is, but, and I'm going to talk about some of the, I've made half a dozen calls with friends, some I haven't seen for years. And some were uncomfortable. And some were full of anger and sadness, and some couple didn't respond, which is, we can't assume why, but it doesn't make any difference, does it? We're all where we are. That's all we can be, is where we are. But to be honest and authentic about that, and then to hear, right? You've heard me say this before. We would rather be unlovable than invisible. That's what I believe the rioting is about. I have been invisible too long. So I know I'm going to be unlovable when I do this stuff, but. And it doesn't make looting right any more than it makes the teenager who, writes all over the bathroom walls right, or who, whatever kids do to destroy property, and they do destroy property, and they're really angry, and they hurt themselves, and they hurt other people. And again, we'd rather be unlovable than invisible. So the whole goal is to stop being invisible to each other, stop being deaf to each other. Oh, good. Thank you, Lisa. Yes, I'm trying not to should on myself, Lisa should. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hello, ma'am. Yes, I know that Christy's joining us from Nigeria tonight. Again, I'm so honored. So honored. So my own personal response again, I'm going to be honest with you. I have not, and probably will never, watch George Floyd's death, that 8-minute video. It's not an option for me. I don't need to watch it to feel intensely. I have read again in many accounts what happened, what transpired over those minutes, what he said. I simply know for my own emotional well-being that would put me into a spin that I might not be able to pull out of. So with all of the anger and sadness that I was feeling, what came to me was, what if I could teach people? I've had these conversations myself. What if I could teach other people to have the conversation? Which brings us to the conversation. So have conversations, I think I said again, that they can change history, and they have changed history. So here are the 2 examples I'm going to give of how just having a conversation with someone who differs from you in any way, differs in opinions, differs in political parties, whatever, how it has changed the world. Okay, so I'm going to read from Honest Communication in the 8th grade book. Margaret Thatcher once referred to President Reagan as the man who beat communism. Now, I was one of those who grew up hiding under desks because the Russians might bomb us, and so we had to practice bombing drills. The Russians were the bad guys. Reagan, the man who beat communism. Many historians contend that it was Ronald Reagan's honesty and openness in his personal conversations with the Russian leader Mikhail Gorbachev that brought an end to the Cold War. It's worth noting that Reagan did not soften his truth at any time to make peace with Gorbachev. On the contrary, he publicly confronted him in 1987 against the counsel of his advisors, saying, General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate and open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Now, for those of you, and I had some students today who weren't familiar with the Berlin Wall and how many tens of thousands were killed trying to cross it from East Berlin, which was communist, into West Berlin, which was free. So that same year that he made that statement, the two leaders were talking across a table and started to befriend each other. Years later, Nancy Reagan would sum up their relationship and say, from the moment they first sat down with each other, they connected. When they left the bargaining table with all the politicians and negotiators, they would go to a little place where the fire was going and stay there for about an hour. All the others were getting worried. What is he doing? What is he giving away? But this time was what made him successful. I've read more about those conversations in the rocking chairs in front of the fireplace. They were talking about their grandchildren, often, and life, and God, and marriage, and the loneliness of being a leader. Again, for those of you who weren't alive or very old back in those days, you cannot imagine, you simply cannot imagine how at war and at odds the Russians and the Americans were at that time. And yet, Ronald Reagan invited Gorbachev after the first meeting. Would you like to come over by the fireplace and sit and chat for a while? Ronald Reagan is not a perfect person in my eyes by any means, but he taught us the power of a conversation. So I asked the middle schoolers today, I said, what was it that tore down the Berlin Wall? And they guessed a wrecking ball and a bomb. Again, young kids weren't around in the 80s. And I said, no, it was a conversation that tore down the wall. It was a conversation. Because at one point, Gorbachev said to all of those armed guards in the posts who were used to shooting anyone they saw in the field in between the walls, he said, hold your fire. And the Berlin Wall was torn down over the next 24 hours. Okay? So that's the first great story about a conversation. The second one is from a film I'm strongly encouraging you all to watch called The Best of Enemies. I'm not remembering who recommended it to me, but you know that I love true story movies, yes? Speaking of Just Mercy, phenomenal film I watched during this COVID stay-at-home time. At any rate, just The Best of Enemies is about, again, stay with me, I'm pretty sure it's North Carolina, I'll have to look that up. A town in North Carolina who had a black school and a white school. And the black school burnt to the ground. And so they said, okay, well, that's okay. It's, integration is starting, so we're just going to move our kids into the other school so we can integrate. Oh, no, you're not, said the Ku Klux Klan, who were very active in this town in North Carolina. Again, some time ago, obviously. So they were just back and forth, and not good things were happening. And so somehow the decision was made to bring in a facilitator, which I'm going to teach you all tonight how to be, just like I was a facilitator today with those middle schoolers. They brought in a facilitator who had skills, skills of understanding how communication works and how emotions work. And before they began, it's a great movie. I've got to watch it again this weekend. Before they began, he had everybody sign an agreement that they would do what they were asked. What's that called in 8 to Great? They'd be coachable. Okay? So they all had to agree to do this stuff. And the Ku Klux Klan leader said, fine, sign the document. So they got everyone together that first night, and they're making announcements. And they said, okay, so everyone's going to be assigned a partner. And your homework is to have a what? Oh, there's Christy. To have a what? A conversation. And so over the next few weeks, they were assigned to having regular conversations with their partner. I remember one of them was they had to eat together. They had to break bread together. Now, any guesses as to who the Ku Klux Klan leader was assigned? Oh, hello, love yourself, Elizabeth. Good to hear from you. Who do you think that Ku Klux Klan leader was assigned? Go ahead and type that in if you want to. Right. The civil rights advocate, who happened to be female, the head of the entire civil rights group in that community. Strong woman, strong man, each with their very diverse views, forced to have a conversation. Spoiler alert, close your ears if you don't want to hear this. He became a civil rights advocate because of her. And they were friends, as in very close friends, for the rest of their lives. Okay, there you have it. Fenolia, thank you for joining us. So we have a diverse group here on this call tonight, and again, I'm so grateful. Put in whatever comments. Again, I can't keep, stopping my words in case I say something wrong. I can't do that anymore. I'm just going to say what I'm saying and know that it's from my heart. But if I say something that doesn't feel good, let me know, okay? Because I'm really trying to honor each person's perspective. Thank you, Susanna. All right, so now we've covered, just talked a little bit about my own personal experience. And the second one is the importance of a conversation. So what does a conversation look like and how do you start it? Again, I've had lots of conversations about the conversation. And one person said, weren't you scared? So I'll tell you, one of my most fearful moments was when a name came up in my Facebook feed and I go, oh, Stephanie. And she's one of our coaches and I adore her, but I have not spoken with her for maybe 5 or 6 years. It's been a long time. But again, I lived in Kansas City. We were close when we lived in that city, but again, have been not living in the same city for a long time. So I went into her Facebook page and checked out what she's doing. Awesome things with women empowerment. And I just said, this is my sign. I love signs. This is my sign that it's Stephanie that I want to reach out to for my next conversation on what this all feels like for her and what her experience with social injustice and racism has been. So I'm just going to tell you my personal experience. This isn't the right way. It's just what I did. I began with a text saying, hey, Steph, how's it growing, girl? So wonderful to see your beautiful pictures, and I'm Facebook messaging her, and I just told her exactly what it felt like to see her smiling face again, and that I would love to connect. And I also had a question to ask her. So she said, okay, and what's it about? And I said, well, I'd love to have a little longer conversation and maybe even invite you to be my very first guest on my podcast, MK Mueller's Positive Powercast. And she goes, oh? And I said, but let's get on the phone. So we did, about an hour later, and I said, here's the deal. I mean, I said, I'd love to have the conversation now, but if, of course we checked in with each other and how our kids are doing and all that good stuff. But then I said, if you'd be willing to have this raw conversation without rehearsal on the podcast, I think it could be helpful for folks who are wanting to do the same thing and just feeling unsure about it. And Stephanie's such a risk taker, such a leader, such a light. And she said, absolutely. So that podcast is now available. Again, MK Mueller's Positive Powercast, or you can go to our 8togreat.com website and click over on podcast, and you'll see all of the podcast titles. And that one's called How to Have a Conversation on Race. Just trying to tell it like it is. Again, I could have said how to have, one way to have, but a little wordy. So I just started. So I said, okay, well, Stephanie, I'm finding out that I don't know what I don't know, and there's a lot I don't know. And I mean, I adore you, and I know, you've been incredibly successful, but I'm guessing from all the stuff I'm hearing on the, in the newspaper and on the news, that it's been tougher than I thought it was. Can you tell me about that? So she did. And she said, I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood, So this next part, remember, I've had half a dozen of these by the time I get to Stephanie. It was different for everybody. One person said, I wasn't really black. And then they'd tell me another nationality. And there were a couple of them who said, so it was different for me than it was for very dark-skinned blacks. Again, news to me. But I was learning. So, yeah, again, everybody, the conversation was different for everybody. But this is the question I got to with most people. Did one of your parents or some adult in your life have the conversation with you when you were young? And out of those first 7 people, 6 of them said yes. So, do you know what I'm talking about? The conversation that I never had with my children was how to protect themselves from the police. When I first heard this and found out how prevalent this conversation was, and that there were rules. The first rule was, if you get pulled over, hands on the steering wheel. You don't want them to think that your hands are reaching for a gun. Okay. And one was a 16-year-old female the first time she got pulled over. Can you imagine? The first day she got her license, she was pulled over by a white policeman. So that was the first rule she was taught. Hands on the steering wheel. Some of them had this conversation, by the way, when they were 9 or 10, some when they were 11 or 12, and others when they got their driver's license. That was a little bit. So the first one was hands on the steering wheel. Again, fill in with what I'm forgetting here. The second one that I remember is respectful short responses. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. Okay? The third one was narrating. So if they say, I need your registration, you say, officer, I have a question. The registration is in my glove compartment. Do you want to get it out, or would you like me to reach over and get it myself? And then you moved very slowly to getting it out of the glove compartment to hand it. Yeah. My daughter was stalked when she was in 8th grade. The first time she smiled at a gentleman in a light blue car, like the new pastor's light blue car. And this man, like the pastor, had dark hair and a dark beard. And she smiled thinking it was the new pastor, and it wasn't. And he pulled over and asked my 8th grade daughter to get in the car. And she ran the 2 blocks home. And we just hugged and shook for a long time. Of course, she wasn't walking to or from, there's 1 month left of school, that she was not going to walk to or from school anymore. But unfortunately, the blue car kept appearing. Someone saw it while the kids were out playing recess. Someone saw it on one of the streets, but by the time they went to confront him, he was gone. So I'm just, again, not trying to make you feel sorry for me, just letting you know. I know that experience of being frightened for my children's safety. At the end of the 30 days, it was the last day, and we'd been in touch with the police numerous times. The police came to my home the day before and said, "We need you to allow Joanna to walk to school tomorrow." I said, "What?" "We're going to have policemen behind every tree, armed policemen behind every tree. But we need to catch him, and we know he will show up tomorrow because it's the last day of school. He will confront your daughter, and we will be there. But you have to let her walk alone." Thank God for prayer, yes? And 1.5 blocks into that 3-block walk, he drove up and was surrounded by, thank you God, for those policemen. Long story short, he was a 35-year-old mentally unstable man who had been living with his parents. Both his parents had died within 2 months. That's why he was harboring guns, because he was so afraid of his life. He had seen a light in my daughter's smile and would do anything to get it again because there was no light in his life. And when the judge called me 2 months later, he said, "Felony or misdemeanor, we have decided that you will be the decider. Felony or misdemeanor." And I said, "How's he doing in rehab?" And he said, "Beautifully, truly. He's doing very, very well." And I said, "Judge, do you have children?" "Yes." "Do you have a daughter?" "Yes." "If it was your daughter, Judge." And he said, "I would say misdemeanor." And I said, "Then that's what it is." And we never heard about him or from him again. I needed to bring closure to that story. And why am I taking the time to tell you that story? Because that was 1 month of my life. Pure hell for 1 month. So as I find out that my friends had this conversation and sent their children out day after day into a world where the very police officers there to protect and serve them might be those who led to their incarceration or death. No words, no words. So when I asked the middle school students today, did some of you have that conversation with your parents? About half the hands went up and half did not. So I'm ready now to share with you the script that I worked out with them, and email me at mk@8degrade. I'll send you my notes. That's all it is I have notes, which I'm sure I'll continue to update, and maybe you'll have ideas for me. But I will email this to you if you email me at mk@great.com if you think it's helpful. So the first thing I ask the kids is, when we're having a conversation, there probably needs to be some guidelines or what we might call rules. What rules do you think we should set for this conversation? And the kids were awesome. No yelling, no name calling, no interrupting. I added that we speak for ourselves, not to say we all think or we all feel. We can't really do that, can we? And the last rule I suggested was that at any point you can say, stop. This isn't feeling comfortable. I said, you don't have to say anything else but stop. That's just a timeout sign. Stop works too. If this just gets too hard, and that's whether it's over the phone or in person or in a classroom like it was. So we had our rules, and then I said, all right. It takes courage. It comes from the French word heart. It takes courage. It takes heart strength to raise your hand, but I'm going to invite somebody to raise your hand and volunteer to be my first dialogue partner for this discussion. Would somebody be willing to do that? There went her hand. So, and she didn't, there were kids who had me last summer. I don't think she was one of them. So I was, she'd known me for all of 10 minutes. And by the way, if you're doing this with adults, you might want to have them watch the Brene Brown, even 5 or 10 minutes of one of her TED Talks on vulnerability and why, if you're going to be a leader, you have to be vulnerable. It's just a requirement of good leading, right? But these were young people, so I chose not to do that. All right, so now she's standing across from me, socially distancing. We both had our masks on, and I asked her the following questions. Dear one, did an adult in your life have a talk with you when you were younger about how to protect yourself in case you were pulled over by the police? I'm just curious. I've heard that was a common thing for young girls and boys of color that happened to you. Now, I actually did this with 3 different students over the hour, and so 2 said no. That was good to know, wasn't it? And 1 said yes. So with the yes, there's kind of a version of questions that we go to that next question. How old were you and what was the talk like? And so again, I got their age and how did it feel when you heard this information? And they told me that. And then I turned to the group and I said, what feelings are coming up for you right now as you hear, actually one of them was their teacher, as you hear that your teacher heard this at the age of 16, what's coming up? And again, the hands went up. Sad that he had to be on alert. That would be scary. I said, valid. Yes, I'm guessing that's exactly how it would feel. Sad and scary and angry. The next question I asked that gentleman was, how do you feel now when a policeman or a policewoman walks towards you? Is it still going on? I'm just curious. Is this so pervasive that still gets triggered? And the answer was, yeah, that would almost have to be PTSD kind of things if it happened to you. And it had. It had happened. Again, I have so many stories in my head, I can't go there right now. But the conversation goes where it goes. And if the answer is no, we didn't have that conversation when I was growing up, then have you felt the effects or thought you felt the effects of racism as you've been growing up? And again, this is middle schoolers. And what has that looked like? I'm trying to just understand I really don't know. I kept thinking that this was over in the 60s, right? No. Can you give me some examples? And oh my gosh. Stephanie talks about in the podcast driving down a highway in Kansas with her daughter laughing about something, turning and looking at the van full of family members next to them and getting the finger. And then they pulled away. Again, no words. But you're going to learn things about your friends, neighbors, coworkers that I guarantee you did not know. So then I asked, do you have any questions for me? I'm asking you lots of questions. Do you have any for me? Okay. And then, of course, I had to come to, so how is this time that we're going through right now, these past 2 weeks, how is this time feeling? What is it calling up for you? And again, wide variety. Not just one person this feeling, one person that feeling, but each person. So many feelings, so many thoughts, so many questions. And the adult that I interviewed today at the school was mostly, he said, MK, I'm feeling hope. And I asked the question that I always do. LADI, you know this, right? LADI that we talk about in the book is, let me see if I got that. Acknowledge what they said. Did I get that? Is there more? Now, it's especially powerful if they're saying something that upsets you. But it can be used even if they're not disagreeing with you or saying something that upsets you. So he said he had hope, and I said, let me see if I'm hearing you. So you're telling me that you're feeling hopeful? Did I get that? And then he said yes, and I said, is there more? Oh, he said, how much time do you have? It was eloquent. It was beautiful. And at the end, the kids clapped for him. It's powerful. So we can end, and again, these are specifically conversations on race. That's the topic tonight, is how to have the tough conversation on race and social justice. So that's what I'm focusing on. But even in a social justice and race-focused conversation, it's important for me to end conversations, as I did with all of those folks I've mentioned, with, so these days, what is one of your dreams? And you have to use the word sorry if you're following the rules. 8th grade has rules. And one of the rules that 8th grade has taught me, the author, is that to say, what is your dream, is too big a question, because then you're asking for their biggest dream. What is your big dream? When that might be too personal. And sure enough, one young woman said, and I stopped the conversation right there and turned to her classmates and said, oh, she's saying no, isn't she? And they said, yeah. And I go, that's called a what? And one of the middle schoolers said, a boundary. I said, yes. She's setting a boundary. Is setting a boundary healthy? Yes, they said. I said it is, not just for your safety, but your sanity, your emotional security. And so we talked about no. And that beautiful no phrase that we teach in 8th grade, which is, no, I won't be doing that. But thank you for asking. Yeah. So it was so powerful. And so 2 out of the 3 shared their dream. 1 did not. And I said, well, thank you for being so honest and authentic with me. And by the way, when you're in a conversation, often if there's a question that you can't answer, I think it's a good idea to answer it. For example, thank you for telling me about the conversation. I didn't have one with any adults in my life, so that was really helpful for me to hear about your experience. And I think we're both guessing that we had different experiences because my skin's lighter than yours. That's just what I'm guessing. But again, making sure that there's vulnerability on both sides, right? Basically, I'm inviting you to be conversation ambassadors. If you'd like my notes from tonight's call, just email me at mk at 8 to great. That's my initials, mk @ the number 8 TOGREAT.com, and I will send you my notes. But you don't need the notes to have a conversation. You know that there are some people who've had different experiences with social justice and that you don't know all of the story. And again, remember I said earlier on the call, sometimes they're waiting for us to ask, how are you doing? What was it like? We have to have that courage, knowing we might say the wrong thing. And just trusting them to let us know, that didn't feel good. You want to rephrase that? I recently heard that the governor of Nebraska was in a conversation and used the phrase, you people. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. A couple people walked out. Do you think they had a right to walk out? Of course. That was their way of saying, stop. We're done for now. That's all I can handle. That phrase, you lost me. They didn't say I'll never talk to you again. They simply were done for that day. So you might check out my Facebook page post today from my dear, beautiful new friend, Rachel Wolf, an author of Letters from a Better Me, who made a beautiful post on all is not true. Not all Christians, not all Buddhists, not all blacks, not all whites. We cannot speak for all of anybody. There is no such thing as a you people. There isn't. So that's just good to know, right? We come into the conversation saying, this is me, and you're you, and I'm not asking you to speak for all people of your race. Again, race is a continuum for me, so I even have trouble saying the word race. But I heard this beautiful teaching the other day. This is great. There's a wonderful, and I'm trying to remember what it's called. I think it's white fragility. If you just type in white fragility in your Google search, it'll come up. It's a woman's talk, and I don't remember if it's a TED talk or what it is, but it's called white fragility. And I think it's one of the statistics she shared was, focusing on race. What a joke. She said we are 99.99% the same in our DNA makeup. A flock of pigeons is more diverse than the human race on this planet. Want to hear that one again? More diverse than all of the humans. We have more in common with each other than those pigeons do. Yes, I have hazel eyes. You might have different color eyes, right? There you go. I have a bigger nose probably than you have a big nose. It's all good. So let me just see if there's any comments or questions. One of my biggest is Safe and Guard Home Health Care. Oh, your dream. Thank you, Fenolia. She wants to make it a very successful company. It's called Safe and Guard Home Health Care. Thank you, Fenolia. Fenolia, a beautiful woman of color, and one of our newest graduates of the 8 to Great certification program. Love you, dear heart. Oh, good. Dana, it made an impact on him, or he was advised to do so. Either way, he apologized. Oh, did he? Thank you, Dana. I didn't see the follow-up story. Thank you. He apologized. Isn't that what it's all about? Yes? It's just like, it's just like there's movement after conversation. And I don't think there's movement one way. I think there's movement both ways, and hopefully the movement is here. Yes, here. So good for the governor. Woo-hoo. Thank you, Dana. I'm so glad you're on the call. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We all bleed red. Isn't that the truth, Becky? Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? And we all want what's best, right? What do we say in 8 to Great? We were all doing the best we could at the time with the information we had. Gosh, that's a hard one to work sometimes. But therefore, it's about getting more information, and that's what these conversations have given me. And I'm so grateful that you guys stuck with me for 15 minutes. By golly, that's such a gift. Because I know I don't have anything bigger or more important to say than any of you do. But again, you tell me when your Facebook Live is, and I'm going to go on yours. Because I want to hear your story. I want to hear your thoughts, your feelings. I want to hear how this is impacting you. And even if we have a conversation through Facebook Live, right? It's better than nothing. But you got my number. Almost all of you have my number. Or Facebook message me and I'll give you my phone number, right? And again, mk@8togreat.com. Questions, comments, you have a podcast topic you want me to cover, go for it. So let me end with my next dream, okay? Because I woke up this morning with oh, you're so sweet. Thank you, Becky. She said, worth every second of listening. I woke up with a really big dream. Big, guys, big. So years ago, I'm on a plane and I thought, what if I wrote a food program about how to get off sugar and therefore be a healthier weight and a healthier human being and put it together with 8 to Great. And so somehow on the plane between Omaha and Florida, I named it 8 to Your Ideal Weight. And today, right, a bunch of ideal weight folks are on this call, a bunch of ideal weight coaches are on this Facebook Live. And if you're looking for a weight loss program, maybe a couple extra COVID pounds, please contact me, mk@8togreat, or Becky@8togreat, or Kathy@8togreat. No, I'm probably saying this wrong. But anyway, contact me. I'll connect you with Becky and Kathy because they're coaches right now. I'm not doing the Ideal Weight program at this time. I'm encouraging people and referring them, but I'm living it. Believe me, I'm living it. Oh my gosh, the only reason I'm not as big as a house after all that stay at home is because of that program. So I'm so grateful. So anyway, so that was a big idea that's changed thousands of people's lives that came to me on a plane. And I worked the program. What is the program? Get the picture, take the risk, full responsibility, feel all your feelings honestly, communicate, forgive the past, be grateful for the present, have hope for the future. And by working those processes, I started a business that I call very successful. Did it make me a millionaire? No. Did it fulfill me and help me know I was changing lives? Yes. So here's my new dream. Drum roll! I gave it a name today. Sometimes names evolve, but at this point, my new national project, you're the first to hear it, is a conversation to change the world. A conversation to change the world. And the acronym is a big A, a big C, a big T for ACT, and then a small CTW. A conversation to change the world. And what I want to do is go around to every school that will have me for free. You want to give me a free will donation to cover expenses, that's cool, but for free. You got a church, I'll come in. And I'll remind you of the scriptures that go with this, by the way. But scripture is optional, okay? And of course, I will never use the scriptures in a school or a business setting. But if you have a business, you have a chamber of commerce, you have anybody, just like tonight, I haven't gotten spiritual, have I? Nah. If you want me to come in and teach your folks, facilitate how to do these courageous conversations, I'm going to teach them Laddie. How when somebody says something that makes you feel defensive, you come back with, let me see if I got that. Acknowledge what they said. Did I get that? Is there more? LADI. it takes tempers way down. Okay? Love it. Act. Thank you, Becky. You go, girl. Oh, like I said, you're my first. A conversation to change the world. I might even eventually rename my podcast that. Who knows? All I'm telling you now is I am, just like when I started Ideal Weight, I'm putting out a call for anybody who wants me to do a Zoom call and teach somebody these skills, a live presentation with masks and social distancing here in Florida, whatever. But I'm also challenging you to become ambassadors of the conversation. Okay? You don't start by teaching people to have the conversation. You start by what? You know this. You know this. You start by having the conversation. You start by picking up your phone and going, okay, you know who you need to call. And you just text him. Don't call him first. Text him. Say, hi. You doing okay? How are things? I'd love to connect. Can we get on a phone call? That's what you do. You just have a pre-conversation, right? And then you set up a time to talk. And then you talk. And you don't have any screens open. You don't have any distractions. You're by yourself. No cat or dog on your lap. Just you focusing on this conversation. Skype, FaceTime, fine. Stephanie and I just did ours over the phone. And again, I recorded it. So if you want to hear my conversation, 40 minutes long, I didn't want to cut her off. It was so powerful. Stephanie Moore and I having the tough race conversation after not talking for over 5 years. It's my podcast that I just posted this week called How to Have a Conversation on Race. And again, my podcast is MK Mueller's, M-U-E-L-L-E-R, MK Mueller's Positive Power Cast. Or you can just go to 8toGreat.com and look for podcast at the top, and you'll find it that way too. Okay? So, you understand the homework? Yeah, you know, teacher here loves to give homework. So, you're going to have the conversation. And don't just have one, because they're so rich. Have them with people of different ages and different ethnicities and different, economics. There's a gentleman at the movie theater. Movie theaters aren't open, but when they open again, I'm going to have it with him. I don't know why. He and I, every time I go to the movies, he and I just connect. And we'll have a little conversation in the hallway while he's waiting to go clean out the next theater. He's one of my favorite people. Just hardly know him. I can't wait to have that conversation with Jamil. Okay? So you have the conversation, and then you offer to other people, would you like me to show you how to have these conversations? Because it's something we can all do after the marches are over, after the newscasts have moved on to something else. We can, in Ahmad's name, in Brianna's name, in George's name, have the conversation. Dear hearts, communication comes from common and union. Let us unite in love. Namaste. Love you all. Thank you so much for being on this call. Again, so honored. Lisa, call me. We'll talk. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, love you all.